I had heard about a doula and it sounded really exotic and interesting.
You want somebody in the room with you who you can look at when things feel intense or scary, and they know you. They know the name of your dog.
Caitlin Wilder, a mother, a doula, a certified lactation consultant, and the visionary founder of Wilder Beginnings.
With years beside birthing moms and newborns, she's guided thousands through the chaos of pregnancy and early parenthood.
Not just a professional, but a steady presence when things get real, and parents need more than just instructions.
It's also kind of crazy that we're expecting our poor partners to know how to emotionally support us, and I would be screaming at him like, get away from me.
They brought my baby to me, and then they sort of just left me there with my newborn baby. I had no clue that there was like a ramp-up period. It's difficult to sleep.
I made the biggest mistake. I should have never done this.
Hi, and welcome to Kidsy Connects. Today on our show, I am so excited to be talking to Caitlin Wilder. Caitlin is a mom, a doula, a lactation consultant, a podcaster, and she's the founder of Wilder Beginnings, a resource-rich support platform helping thousands of families across the country navigate pregnancy, birth, early parenthood, and so much more. Caitlin, welcome so much to Kidsy Connects. I am so delighted to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So this is the first time we've interviewed a doula on the show, and I love this because as a mom with two kids, I remember when I found out I was pregnant, I had heard about a doula and it sounded really exotic and interesting, but I didn't quite know what exactly a doula did or what the role of a doula was going to be as I sort of navigated pregnancy. So I'd love to hear from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know what a doula is or what a doula does. And it's so interesting being in LA. I think they're pretty common. And even with that, when I would tell people I was having a doula with my son, my first child, people still didn't know what that meant. So basically a doula is, well, every doula is different. I'll say that. Some doulas have certain specialties, like maybe you have a doula who does like massage or yoga or things like that. But basically a doula is there to be emotional support for you, to help prepare you for birth, to help you have the birth that you dream of having, as much as possible, to be there for you at the hospital if you're having hospital birth or at home, to help your partner help you, to help you advocate for yourself, all of those things. So a doula does so many things. I always say we do everything but give medical advice or deliver the baby, because that's very much out of our scope. We are not midwives, which is very important also to note. But for me, I am also a certified childbirth educator, so I was really heavy on the education side of things. And then I would tell people when I was talking to them, if you're giving birth in a hospital, you're just another room number. If you have a great nurse, that's amazing, but nurses also are doing rounds. They have other things to do. They don't know you. You want somebody in the room with you who you can look at when things feel intense or scary, and they know you. They know the name of your dog. They provide comfort for you, and it's not your partner, because it's also kind of crazy that we're expecting our poor partners to know how to emotionally support us, physically support us. Like, I think of my husband, he's amazing. He wouldn't know what sort of comfort measures to do for me while I'm giving birth, and I would be screaming at him like, get away from me. Like, that's just not what you want. So a doula really does all of those things and so much more.
Doesn't matter if you are having a natural vaginal birth or a C-section. Doesn't matter if you are getting anesthesia or whether you are not. I mean, does the doula play a specific role in the type of birth you are having? Or is it sort of all-encompassing?
It's all-encompassing. So I've done I've only done hospital births, I will say. That was kind of my specialty because 99% of births take place in a hospital. There are some doulas who only do home births. But for me, I really wanted to focus on the hospital birth because I think that's where doulas are needed the most. You might think a doula is only for that unmedicated, natural home birth situation. But really, the second you walk into a hospital, you start getting hit by interventions that the hospital wants to do for you. And so having a doula there, no matter what your birth is, I've been there at planned C-sections. So I had a client who I was working with towards the end of their pregnancy. They knew they needed a C-section. I met them at the hospital at 5:30 in the morning, and I sat with them in the room as we were getting ready, and I helped, create the energy for that, and I waited for them during the C-section. So I had done a C-section. I've done unmedicated hospital deliveries. I've done hospital medicated where the second they got to the hospital, they wanted the epidural. And the doula is so important for that too, because again, if you have a good nurse, that's fantastic. But if you don't have a good nurse, you're just left in that bed for hours on end, especially if you get an epidural. And so a doula for an epidural birth is hugely necessary too, to help get you into the right positions and, tell you what's going on and still try to keep the birth that you want to be. I've been a doula for births where it ended up in a more of an emergency C-section. So really, doulas are for every single kind of birth you can imagine. They are so worthwhile and valuable. And I'm not just saying that because I am one, but because when I'm in these different births, I think, my God, what would this experience have been like if this poor couple was alone and they didn't have someone else there? It's also really helpful to have someone there who's a little bit removed to help process the birth after. Birth doulas are still really important after delivery because they were the ones that were in the room with you and can tell you what was going on and answer questions and maybe help reframe what the experience was for you. So that was a very long answer to your question of what kind of births can a doula be for.
No, it was good. Yeah. What's the most common misconception that you get when you say the word doula?
I would say that people think doulas are just for people that want to have an unmedicated home birth, and that doulas think that doulas are really like crunchy, very wooey, against medication, against interventions, all of that. That's, I think, what people are still thinking. And there are doulas that are like that, and they serve an amazing purpose. But there are also a lot of doulas like me who, again, most of my births all my births were hospital births, and most of them involved an epidural because that's just what most women want these days.
What's the one thing that you find moms giving you the most gratitude for? Like, there's a list of things that you do, and when you get your thank yous and when you get those like quiet, private, intimate moments with a mom who's about to deliver or just delivered, what is the one thing that they often tell you that they're most grateful for?
Yeah. Well, I just got chills when you asked that question because it reminds me of how crazy it is that I get to be part of people's birth stories. That when people think of their birth, I will forever be part of that. And that is such an honor and such a blessing, and not something I take lightly at all. I mean, it's a huge honor. I would say the thing that people are most grateful for any role I play is just me being there, is just me acting as a source of comfort for them. Because as I've talked about nurses 100 times already, but nurses are in and out. Like I said, they've got other people they're attending to. A doula is there the whole time just for you. They aren't going anywhere. We're sleeping on the hospital floor with you. We aren't leaving to go have a shift change or to go see another patient. We're there the whole time. So I think it's just the comfort provided. And then I've taken a couple of different trainings about positioning and optimal fetal positioning and how to help, move mom, even if she's had an epidural, to help the baby continue to descend. So kind of that thing too, people are really thankful for of, oh, thanks for, flipping me to the side and that helped, or giving me encouragement. And then I love whenever the partners thank me too, because you can tell in their eyes, they're just like, oh my God, I cannot believe I almost had to do this. Like, what would I have, what would I have done if I was alone during this? That would have been crazy. So I love when the partners look at me and they're just like, thank you so much. And I'm like, don't worry about it. You did a great job. So it's, I always tell them too, they say, oh, I couldn't have done this without you. And I'm like, you absolutely did it. This was all you. I didn't, this outcome had nothing to do with me. It was because you were strong, you were empowered, you felt supported, and maybe I had a role in that, but it's all the moms. It's not the doulas.
Yeah. And you're right. I remember for both my daughter's births, there was a rotation of so many people coming in and out of my room, and it was often not the same nurse, especially if you're there for 24, 48, or 72 hours.
Exactly. And if you have that great nurse, you're so lucky, but then shift change and they're leaving and you don't know who's coming in, or the timing of it. You could have had the same nurse for so much of your labor, and then right when it's time to push, all of a sudden there's a new nurse you've never met before who's in the room, who you're expected to connect with and feel motivated by and supported by to push, but you don't even know their name. So I think that's why having a doula, that continual presence that again knows you, is so important.
Yes. And, I remember, especially with the birth of my first child, they brought my baby to me, and then they sort of just left me there with my newborn baby.
Yeah.
And, with the second one, I knew what to do. But with the first one, I was like, other than cuddling and nuzzling and skin to skin, I was petrified. I was like, what else can I do? What else should I be doing? How should I change the diaper? What's a good feeding position? Is there even any milk coming out? Like, there were all of these questions. I was almost kind of terrified that they just entrusted me with this newborn and left.
Yes, totally. I always say to people too, anytime I'm at a birth, I'm surprised by how often the person having the baby and her partner are just left alone in the room. So not even just after you have the baby, but if you're laboring and you're in pain and the nurse can't be there with you the full time. Again, they've got a whole job they're doing. So you're left alone a ton. And that to me is also crazy. I couldn't imagine being left alone during that time, needing the comfort and the measures, or even, if you have an epidural, you're just kind of like left in the bed for so long. And then you have the baby. You can't move. And then you have the baby. Yeah. And you're looking at the baby like, wait, I'm sorry, what? I remember after I had my son, I hit that nurse call button so often because I wouldn't like make up questions that I needed help with. And when I would call and it would go to the nurse's station and they'd say, oh, what's going on? And I would just say, can you please just have somebody come to my room? Because I'd be like, shoot, I need to think of a reason why I need a nurse to come to my room. But I just needed someone else there with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, a doula isn't really there. Typically, doulas will leave the hospital after an hour or two after birth, but they're there for that moment when all of the nurses leave and you're just kind of sitting there and you're like, wait, what is going on? Because it's still very out of body for a lot of moms, especially if they have the epidural, to kind of have that medication come out of them and come back down to earth. You really do still want, that comfort and support of, again, someone who knows you when you're, left alone.
And I love that you also are, as well as being a doula, you're also a lactation consultant.
Yes.
Because I think that also is extremely powerful because, again, it's this newness of your body that, and you can see all the videos and read all the blogs and articles that you want about breastfeeding and how to breastfeed. But I think when you're actually doing it, it's a completely different experience. And I struggled a lot with even trying to figure out like what is a good latch. And so how did you decide to become a lactation consultant?
Yeah, so I mean pretty much for that reason, that I just felt like my care with the people I was working with, I didn't just want it to end right after the birth. So that's why I also became a postpartum doula too, as a full spectrum doula, because I would tell, my clients that I worked with, still text me after you have the baby, and they would ask me questions about latching or lactation. And I would say, well, it's kind of out of my scope. I can't really, I can answer from personal experience, but I didn't feel comfortable not having an actual certification behind what I was sharing. So it was really important to me. Also, with what I share on my Instagram, I did not want to share any content or information about nursing or breastfeeding or anything, again, without having actual certification to back it up. So I ended up taking a 95-hour course, which was like the equivalent of a college class, to become a certified lactation counselor, just because, again, I wanted to be able to help the people that I was working with and help disseminate that information on a wider scale. I think so many people don't understand what breastfeeding is actually like. And again, like you said, or you take these classes, you watch the videos, you have something in your head. You know, I would always say, I had this vision of breastfeeding is just so easy and natural, and I'm in like a field of flowers holding my baby. And the reality, and the reality was I was like, had a nursing pillow strapped on me. I'm having to do like compressions. I'm having to hold in a certain position to get the right latch. And I didn't know that could be breastfeeding and that could actually be considered successful breastfeeding. I thought that meant it was wrong, or it wasn't as easy for me as it was for other people, so that must mean I'm doing it wrong. When in reality, I think that's probably the more common experience. So it was, again, important to me. I really wanted to be able to share that information, but I did not feel comfortable sharing that without a certification. So that's why I went and did that, and it was so enlightening and fascinating, and I'm so glad that I did it. And I do think there needs to be some change in the narrative of breastfeeding in these like shared public social media spaces of what is actually realistic, what is normal. You know, you'll see a lot of influencers post amounts of milk they've pumped and they're filling up the bottle, but they say they're also a predominant breastfeeder. And it's like, okay, well so then, you know, first time mom is watching this who doesn't know and thinks, oh my God, I'm not making enough milk because I'm not able to fill bottles like that. I'm only making 1 ounce. There's something wrong with me. Now they are feeling bad about themselves or like a failure because they're not making the amount of milk that they're seeing somebody else. When again, in reality, that influencer has a crazy oversupply, or they're lying to you and that's not actually what they're producing. And that is not normal. So it was really important to me to be able to, again, share what is actually a normal experience so that these first-time moms aren't feeling like they're failures when their body is just doing exactly what it should be doing. They just aren't seeing that reflected back to them.
Yes. And hearing you describe this is everything that I went through in my journey, where I started following all of these, you know, quote unquote influencers who were new moms, breastfeeding, filling up 6-ounce bottles, like bags and bags in their freezer. And so when I brought my baby home and I was only pumping 2 or 3 ounces, which I didn't know at the time was all my newborn needed.
Exactly.
I started to feel this tremendous amount of like guilt and shame, or that my body couldn't do the thing it was supposed to do. I had no clue that there was like a ramp up period and, you know, that the more you did it, the more it would flow. And there was all of these lessons and learnings. And I think it just made that breastfeeding journey for me feel just so stressful, like as if it was not a competition, but as if for some, like I was not doing enough or not feeding my child enough or not producing enough. So I love that you are now sort of, you know, on this journey and mission to do a lot of this myth busting, because I think something so sacred and intimate and so subjective and personal can feel so isolating for so many women.
Totally. It's so isolating.
I want to talk a little bit more about this. Like, okay, let's talk about the biggest myths you have seen around breastfeeding and lactating and nursing, that like if you could just pick the one myth you would like to bust for every new mom out there, what would the one be?
I would say if it wasn't the normal amounts of milk and what that actually is, I would say that just because breastfeeding is natural doesn't mean it comes naturally. I think that is huge, because again, you get in your head of, oh, you know, my body is supposed to be doing this. My body should know how to do this. And it takes work, and it doesn't happen right away. And it can take a lot of effort, and it can feel like it takes a lot of effort. And again, that doesn't mean it's wrong. That doesn't mean that it's not worth it if you want to keep doing it. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with your body or your baby. So I would say that. And then again, like we touched on, the normal milk amounts, that I will like die on that hill of what your body should be producing, what is an oversupply. And again, that like influencers are not telling the truth about what is actually going on.
And if you had to give like maybe 3 or 4 pieces or steps of really quick, tangible pieces of advice that can help a mom who's starting her breastfeeding journey perhaps navigate it more successfully, like what are your top 3? You know, I hate to use the word hack, but let's just call it, you know, what are your top 3 hacks? Like, hey, try this before you give up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, honestly, I only have one, and that is you need to have an in-person lactation consultant appointment with an IBCLC, so an international board certified lactation consultant, or someone in your area. You need to have someone come to your house and watch you breastfeed in the spot where you sit every day and breastfeed, because, you know, you might take the class like we said beforehand. That's going to go out to your brain the second you have that baby. There might be a lactation consultant at the hospital. That's great, but your milk hasn't come in yet, so your baby isn't even really latching or eating. You're also not where you are going to be doing your feeding, so whatever setup they show you isn't going to work. It is so worth the time and money to have an in-person feeding assessment at your home after your milk has come in, and again after your baby has started eating. I would say that would be number 1. Number 2, have somebody check for tongue ties in your baby. That can really affect latch and feeding. I think both of my kids had tongue ties and also had a lot of residual tension and needed some like baby chiropractor, which is actually very cute. They're not like adjusting the baby. It's just like little baby massage, which is really nice. But I would say, honestly, the number 1 tip is have somebody come to your house and watch you feed where you would do your feeding, and have them show you different positions. And if you can avoid it, do not start pumping before a lot of people for some reason think they have to pump in order to breastfeed, that somehow they're correlated. For many people they are, but people start pumping way too early, which then causes an oversupply. And you might think, oh, oversupply, that just means more milk to save and more milk for my baby. Oversupplies are very difficult to manage. They're very painful. Like, an oversupply is not something you want. So don't pump too early. I wish I could give more specifics, but it's like, I can't say like, do this for latch or do that, because it is so baby specific. And that's why I think it goes back to my number 1 tip is you have to have somebody in person. And if you can't afford a lactation consultant to come see your house, find a La Leche League in your area where they're doing in-person like feeding, where you can go to a meeting and see if somebody there can help watch your feed. Like, you can call your pediatrician and see if they have a lactation consultant on staff who can help. There's different resources for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the oversuppliers, because I think it's been a little bit almost glorified in the media and on social media, and wrongfully so, because I have had, albeit not very common, but those odd moments where maybe I am producing a significant amount on a particular day or during a particular window. And even in those bursts of moments, it felt incredibly painful and uncomfortable. You're leaking through your clothes. It's difficult to sleep. You have to wake up, and even if it's not time to nurse the baby, you still need to clear out the milk. So let's talk about maybe why it is not the pinnacle you want to achieve in your journey.
I mean, everything you said, it is absolutely over glorified on social media. And anytime I post something about normal milk amounts, I have people in the comments who have an oversupply and are like, you do not want this. I have donated like thousands of gallons of milk to people. So oversupply is exactly like you said. It's not just when you feed your baby, there's extra milk. There's always milk. And if you don't remove that milk, then you are more prone to clogged ducts, which are incredibly painful, which can then turn into mastitis, which is horrible. Mastitis is not something you want. It's something that you have to take like antibiotics for. That can turn into abscesses if you're not managing it. So some people too that have oversupplies will have really fast letdowns, which their baby doesn't like. So then their baby isn't feeding well because they're basically like getting all of this milk at them. It's not an easy thing at all. I have so much like empathy for people that have oversupplies and have to manage it. I mean, you're leaking all the time. If you're not, like you said, you might think like, oh, I'm just, because I have so much milk, I don't have to worry about pumping. No, you still will have to pump because your baby also might not be able to like remove enough milk. Then if you want, you have to try to manage your supply and bring it back down. I mean, there's just a lot of work that goes into it. Having to figure out also then what to do with the milk that you are pumping and removing. Are you freezing it? Are you donating it? Like, there's just a lot that goes to it. So I definitely think, and I feel really bad for people because sometimes too, there's no room for sympathy for somebody or empathy for somebody that has an oversupply, because the other side of it is, I didn't make enough milk. I wish I could. You were so lucky that you did. And it's sad because it doesn't create a space for the person with an oversupply to be like, I am lucky, but also it's a really difficult situation for me too. And so I think there needs to be, more space for those people to share their experiences of, you might think you would want this. You really don't want this. Like, this is making my life harder too. There's no, the grass is always greener, but I do think it is kind of unfortunate. Sorry, I pressed a button on my microphone. I did not know what I just did. But I do think it is unfortunate because it doesn't create a space for those people with oversupply to feel comfortable saying what their experience is actually like.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the mom that, can barely maybe get two bottles to her baby in a day. And the other mom can sort of feed in abundance. Yeah. Maybe even freeze enough for baby number 2 or 3. Like, this could be years of supply. So I totally hear you. And I'm glad that, we are able to clear that up for anyone that's feeling envy or that's feeling that the other side is really the gold standard, which it's not. How do you prevent oversupply for those now who are listening and perhaps don't get, a lot of empathy or sympathy from consultants? Like, sometimes you can't help it because it's just how your body produces milk.
Yeah, I would say.
But you talked about pumping, not pumping too early.
Yeah, that would be the number one thing I would say to avoid is some people will think, your milk doesn't quote unquote come in. Your milk is there, but it doesn't transition into the milk that you think of until like 4 or 5 days after you have your baby. So a lot of new moms are thinking like, oh my God, I'm not making enough milk. There isn't any milk coming out. It's colostrum, which is all a baby that age needs. But they think I need to pump to get my milk to come in. That is the worst thing that you can do because you're not letting your body and your supply regulate to what your baby actually needs. You're telling your body, you need to make so much more milk because every time you try to remove milk, you're sending a signal to your body. You're like placing an order basically of this is the amount of milk that my baby needs. So your body's going to take that order and be like, oh my God, this baby needs so much milk. And then your milk comes in and you have an oversupply. Also then, like you said, some people it's natural. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to happen regardless. But I would say if you can avoid pumping until your supply is regulated, do that.
I also wanted to ask you, like, through all your experiences and also being a parenting coach for the early days, what do you recommend new parents do in the first few days or few weeks as they're transitioning into this new life with a new baby in the house that can create for a calmer, more relaxed environment? Because all of that is also so tied together, right? Like your stress levels, your emotional regulation, in your body's ability to relax and then produce milk. And then also being able to connect as much as you can in the early days with your baby. So what do you recommend, or what have you seen in these sort of early days that have really helped others?
Well, first, I would recommend not following anyone on social media who has a baby who is sleeping through the night from birth, who is so, who's making everything seem so easy. Like, immediately mute or block those people. I think it is so hard. People might say, it's so much easier to have a baby now. There's so much help and all of this and all the answers are at your fingertips. I think it is so much harder to have a baby now because of that. Because instead of looking in and trusting our gut and listening to what our baby is telling us that they need, we are outsourcing that to everyone else with an opinion. We are trusting someone else's experience or opinions more than our own. So I would say, don't follow anybody, again, that's going to make you feel bad or make you question what you're doing or make you doubt yourself or make you think that there's something wrong with your baby. Don't feel bad if it feels hard, if you don't love it, if you think this wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Those first 4-6 weeks aren't real. Everything you're feeling in that time is going to go away. It's not going to last. It is going to get so much easier. Your baby is not going to be like that forever, where you're not going to be like that forever, where you have no idea what is going on and you are so overwhelmed and so panicked. That's not actual reality. Things will get easier. Things will get better. I just tell people, take a deep breath. I know it feels like it's going to last forever. I felt that way too. You have to trust that it won't. And that, again, there is nothing wrong with you for not liking what that time is like. You think when you're pregnant or when you've wanted a baby that you're just going to be in this like bubble and it's going to be so wonderful. And then you have your baby and you think, oh my God, I made the biggest mistake. I should have never done this. And I felt that way with my son, and I felt so horrible feeling that way. And I felt so isolated. And that is such a normal way to feel. Like you have a baby screaming at you that you don't know what they want or need. You're also coming off of the greatest hormone crash a human body will ever experience when you give birth. So again, how you're feeling, how you are responding, it's not actually real. That is not your baby. Your baby will change every single day. If you have your baby though, and you are in that bubble, that's fantastic. If you're not, and you just feel like you have to get through every single day, that's okay too. And I would tell myself, okay, one day down, I'm one step closer to it being easier. I'm one day closer to feeling better about this. And if that's how you have to get through it, that's okay. Remove all of the pressure and expectations. Again, the mom you are is not shown in the first 6 weeks. That will come later. Don't worry about how clean your house is. Don't worry about entertaining your baby. Don't worry about showing your baby black and white cards. We're put all of this insane pressure on us. And it's like, don't do any of that. Sit on the couch. Find a great show to watch and binge. Nothing. You don't need to be doing anything else. So get all of that out of your brain, release all of that crazy pressure and expectation, and just be where you are. It is going to end so soon, and that is both a wonderful thing and also, once you're out of it, such a sad thing.
That's such great advice, because you're right. I think in those early days, people are being shown all of these images. And by the way, I love your advice of just like blocking all this noise on social media, because it's just this compare contrast game brings nobody any joy, especially a mom that is super hormonal during those early days. But to your point, I think everyone's being shown like these picture perfect, like Kodak or Pinterest moments. That is not reality. Like, I think for me, I think the best advice I got during the early days was from a friend of mine who said, you are not thriving, you are just surviving.
Yep.
And that is okay.
Yep.
Just survive.
Yep. I say that all the time. I'm like, postpartum is not a time to thrive. That's crazy. And then, I'll get comments that are like, I totally disagree. That is a time to thrive. And you can thrive if you have it set up where you have help coming in and you have nourishing foods. And I'm like, that's not reality. Most people do not have that set up. Like, we need to start meeting moms where they are. And where they are is not sitting in a bed for 10 days before getting out and having somebody bring them the Ayurvedic foods, which are amazing if you can, but like, that's not reality. So if you feel like you are just surviving, that's all you need to do.
And then there's this crazy trend that also started to happen that I started to catch wind of when I became a mom, was the snapback body.
Oh God, yeah.
Did you see that?
Oh yeah.
It's awful.
It's
so
horrible.
In addition to all of these things that is sort of coming at you, there's now another sort of really dysfunctional, toxic hashtag or meme or trend that started to go around in the last few years, which was, how do you get to your pre-pregnancy body? And the faster you can quote unquote snap back sort of was the signal for being a really successful, having a really successful birth experience.
Yeah.
Just so bad.
It's so bad. And I also, celebrities say, oh, I lost all my baby weight breastfeeding. That is not real. For most women, there are some, for most women, they will hold on to weight, if not gain weight while they are breastfeeding. And that is because you are more hungry than you will ever be in your entire life if you are breastfeeding, and you have to eat to maintain your energy and your milk supply. And I was one of these people, I coined it my Oregon Trail body, because our bodies, and it's never more clear than when you have a baby, but our bodies still hold on to very primal, like evolutionary instincts. So when you are breastfeeding, your body will release prolactin, a hormone. And for a lot of women, prolactin causes our bodies to hold on to fat stores in our stomachs and our upper thigh area. And that is because our body is prepping for being without a food source, but still being able to feed our baby. So, it's like, that's why I called it my Oregon Trail body. It was like, my body is preparing for a hard winter on the Oregon Trail, apparently, where they're worried we're not going to have enough food. And I kept being like, we're good. Like, you don't have to hold on to this. But I appreciated that my body was doing that for my baby, despite the fact that I couldn't fit into clothes because of it. But there's not enough people explaining that that's actually most people's reality too, is that they will not lose weight while they are breastfeeding. So this whole idea of that's one way to snap back and get your body back is to breastfeed. And it's like, absolutely not. That's not the case at all. And then you get it in your head, of, oh, well, I don't want to breastfeed because I do want to get my body back because people, are expecting me to. And it's so horrible what social media and society has done to moms, but I can't disagree with that more. And I just would tell people, like, you just have to buy new clothes. You just have to buy a pair of jeans that fits you. And it's, it's very hard. But to me, I kind of was just like, okay, I'm just sacrificing my body for this short period of time in the grand scheme of things. And then when I'm done breastfeeding, then I can focus on that if I want to. But and it took a while. I didn't feel ready to think about my body in that way until my daughter's almost 2, and it was like fairly recently. And it was kind of nice to take that time to not have any thought about my body for the first time in 5 years, because I had 2 pregnancies and then 2 postpartums and all of that. So the bounce back culture it's the worst. And it's also, it gets harder too. You have a lot of people might lose weight right away when they have a baby and then gain weight if they're breastfeeding, or lose weight right away. And that's actually a sign that they're not doing well, that they are so anxious or depressed or have postpartum OCD or anxiety or depression, and they can't physically eat. So that's also something to not be celebrating it, because it could be a sign that somebody's mental health is not doing well and that they need, more care. So it's really... It's garbage. It's that 2000s tabloid culture that is still chasing all of us millennials, thinking that that's what we need to do. It is so
toxic. And I love that you made that correlation between postpartum depression, OCD, mental health, because you're right. You don't know what's happening behind closed doors or underneath the layers. All you may see is someone that is fitting back in her size 4, 6, 8, whatever size that she was pre-pregnancy, in her dresses and in her outfits. But, to your point, like, how much of that is related to mental health versus being genetically blessed.
Right. Like, you're telling somebody, oh my God, it looks like you didn't even have a baby. And inside they're like, I can't eat because I am so anxious about what is happening with my baby or what I'm going to do. I'm miserable. Like, this isn't a sign that things are good. I remember I had a client that I was working with, and she was saying she had a friend who, immediately was back to her old clothes. Like, a week after she gave birth, she was out with friends and going on about this in a positive way. And I said, you know what? To me, that actually, and this is not a blanket statement. Obviously, I don't know everybody's situation, but I said, to me, that can often be a sign that, like, she's really struggling. Not that she's doing so well and is handling it so well, but that there is something she's avoiding. She is so dysregulated that she's trying to cling or go back to her old life because that's what she feels more in control of. Like, that is not necessarily, we shouldn't be necessarily celebrating these moms who basically have a baby and it's like they drop their baby off and then they're back to their exact same lives. To me, I read that as, you're having a difficult time. You need somebody to give you a hug and be like, it's okay if you feel broken right now and you don't know what to do and you feel lost and overwhelmed. Like, you don't have to escape it. You don't have to feel like you can't be there and be around it. You don't have to feel like you regret this decision and you're desperate to get back to your old life. You can get there slowly. But again, it's more of, you don't really know what's going on. And I think it's usually that people are having a harder time and they're kind of masking it.
And also, I think there's this great loss of identity for so many moms when they become a mom for the first time, right? Because your life is no longer yours. And it doesn't really matter all of the things you did or may have achieved pre-baby. When you have that baby, you know, just biologically and evolutionary, it was designed that you were always sort of attached to this new life, and in really big and significant ways in the early days. And then obviously it continues to evolve and shift. And so I think there's a lot of moms, and I went through this briefly, where there were moments where I grieved the person I was a little bit before I had my child. Like, I missed her. And it was trying to also, like, not only fit into your new body and have your baby fit into your life, but also like fitting into this new identity. And for some moms were able to navigate that smoothly. I felt like I navigated that okay. But to your point, I saw so many people around me really struggle to come to terms with this like loss of identity.
Yeah, it's really hard, and it is not something that you can prepare for before you have a baby. You can think you understand it in advance, but there is really nothing you can do to lessen it. Like, your old life and who you were is no longer. You can't go back to it. You will never be able to go back to it. And that is sad and hard, and you should grieve it if you want to or need to. But I also think there's something really beautiful about it once you get out of that grieving stage, and it's kind of like, I can be anyone I want to be now, but I'm also so much stronger and more powerful than I was before. Like, me now, I can do things I would have never been able to do. And I also don't care about things that would have probably completely overwhelmed. Yeah. And it's amazing. And once you lean into that and you're like, wow, I can completely reshape myself as this person who doesn't care what anybody thinks about me, doesn't care about any of the small minutiae I used to get so wrapped up in, because I had a baby. I'm a mom. I survived having a baby and a newborn. Like, you can't touch me. And how exciting of who is this next version of me going to be? And there's still things too. I say, you know, if you are feeling like you lost yourself, what's something that really speaks to the core of you, and how can you bring that back? So for me, I've always been a huge reader my whole life. Loved to read. It was a huge part of my identity. Read before bed every single night. I had my son and I stopped reading. When was I going to read? I didn't have time to read. I couldn't read before bed because I needed to be going to sleep, or I couldn't have, you know, a book light on. And then, I mean, it took me a very long time to realize this, which is a little bit embarrassing, but finally somebody was like, well, get a Kindle. And I got a Kindle, and all of a sudden I could read again, and I could read when I was nap trapped, and I could read before bed without worrying about the lights. And that was such a core piece of me that I was able to bring into my new me and postpartum me. And that helped so much, because that was like a really, like a thread that has run through my entire life that I had dropped in my first postpartum, and in my second, I never dropped it. And I think that made a huge difference for me, because I still connected that with who I am, but brought it into this new version of me. So I would recommend, what is that for you, and find a way to bring that in. If you're somebody who's always loved clothes and fashion, and now you just feel like you can't, you know, you're not getting dressed, or you're just wearing leggings and you don't feel good about yourself, well, you can still like go buy a cute set of leggings that make you feel good, or, you know, go on Pinterest and look up, maybe you hate the thought of like mom outfits, but you are a mom and you need clothes. So maybe find great accounts that have, you know, mom outfits or easy on the go, things like that. Like, you can still care about things like that too. And if that is important to the core of who you are, find easy ways to bring that back to you.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, I think, you know, and just maybe redefining what that looks like in this new chapter of your life. Still bringing that back, but it may not maybe come back in its full, you know, veracity, but it may come back in parts and
exactly
in redefined ways.
Exactly. And also that is still valid for it to come back, even if it's in different ways. Like, don't expect it to be the exact way that it was before. It's okay if it's not, but it can still be great.
Yeah, because nothing will be the same.
Yeah, nothing will be the same.
Nothing will be the same. But to your point, you will be better and stronger for it.
Yes, exactly.
I resonated with what you said about like not caring about what anyone says. I also think like we just don't have the time.
Yes, 100%.
To like, I don't have the time to be thinking about this beyond 30 seconds.
Yes.
You know, because
it's
the
so
list is long.
freeing. Yeah. It's so,
Yeah.
I would, after I had my son, I would think, my God, I can't believe I ever cared about that. Like, truly do not have the time. It's like, if my husband does something that bothers me, pre-kids, I could have held on to that for weeks. I could have drawn that out for so long. Now it's like I'm mad, and then 20 seconds later, I'm like, okay, so what are we having for dinner? Can you go change this diaper? It's like, I don't have the time to care, and it's fantastic. It's very
No
freeing.
time, no energy.
Yes.
I don't have like this extra energy to care about this stuff.
Totally. It's so nice.
So, Caitlin, I've loved our conversation today. Thanks so much for busting so many myths with me. I feel, I really hope a new mom who is about to enter motherhood for the first time or is starting on this journey can really feel inspired and supported through this conversation. And I think, my biggest takeaway is like just block the noise and block social media. But beyond that, like beyond blocking the noise, what are some other resources that you have found have helped you? So for any mom that perhaps wants a doula in her life or maybe wants a in-house lactation consultant but doesn't have the means to maybe afford it in the very moment, what are some other like supplementary resources they can use, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I would say, honestly, if you want a doula and you might not have the resources, still connect with a doula. There are a lot of doulas that work on sliding scales or might be able to put together different packages for you. For lactation, I would say definitely look up La Leche League, which I mentioned, which is a free resource that will have local chapters. Honestly, go on Facebook and look up local mom groups on Facebook or local, there are Facebook groups for everything, but you could find a breastfeeding group in whatever city you're in, and maybe they're having a free get together. There's a lot of people that do things free of charge in your local area. You just have to look it up. But I would say, again, be careful with if it's a mom Facebook group, there might be some advice that's not great in there. I would just use it to find people and find your tribe if you can. Find your mom friends. That can be really hard. I remember with my son, I didn't have a lot, but I remembered a girl from my grade school who I used to be friends with had a baby around the same time, and I reached out to her, and she became one of my mom friends. Like, you just have to find the people that feel like your people, and maybe that village also is online. If you find an account that speaks to you, mute everyone else, and then just look at that account if it speaks to you. So, block the things that don't work, find the things that do, trust yourself. You're going to do great. It's okay if it's hard. You're an amazing mom. That's basically my bumper sticker.
No, I love it. And if people want to connect with you and follow your work and your guidance and get information from you, or perhaps even reach out to you, where can they do that?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Wilder Beginnings. You can find me there. My website is wilderbeginnings.com. And then my podcast, You're So Right, which I host with my good friend Rachel, who's also on Instagram. She does more responsive sleep content. So I would highly recommend also following her. She's not a sleep trainer, so it's nice to have somebody in that space who's not, doing sleep training. So that's where you can find me. I'm always on Instagram.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for being here today. I had so much fun chatting to you.
I did too. Thank you so much.